It was crazy for me because I came here to New York to do Krush Groove. But it was weird because a lot of the guys that were here, the rappers and stuff, they're like, oh, what's she trying to do?
Yo, what's up, man? I said no more auditions, man. Sorry, man. Auditions are over today, all right? You gotta come back next week, maybe we can work something out, all right?
When we first started, when we wanted to make the movie, we just wanted to make a movie.
It's 1985, and hip-hop is just starting to break out of the streets and into mainstream America. A small movie called Krush Groove is about to hit theaters, featuring some of the biggest names in rap history. But there's one scene in this film that almost never saw the light of day. A quiet, tender moment between two characters that had studio executives so worried, they nearly banned the entire movie from theaters. What was so dangerous about this scene? Why did it cause such a massive fight behind the scenes? And how did this controversy actually help launch hip-hop into Hollywood forever? Stay with me as we dive deep into one of the most important moments in music movie history that you've probably never heard about. Before we get into the drama, let me paint you a picture of what the world looked like in 1985. Hip-hop wasn't the global powerhouse it is today. Most people still saw it as just noise from the streets. Radio stations wouldn't play it. MTV barely touched it. And Hollywood? Well, Hollywood thought rap music was just a passing trend that would disappear in a few months. But a young entrepreneur named Russell Simmons had a different vision. He was managing some of the hottest acts in hip-hop, including Run DMC, LL Cool J, and the Fat Boys. These weren't just musicians to him. They were artists with real stories to tell, and he believed the world needed to hear those stories on the big screen. The idea for Krush Groove started when a Wall Street Journal reporter called Simmons the mogul of rap. Two producers, George Jackson and Doug McKenzie, read that article and realized they were looking at something special. Hip-hop wasn't just music anymore. It was becoming a movement, and movements make great movies. Warner Brothers agreed to fund the project, but they didn't exactly throw money at it. The budget was just $3 million, which sounds like a lot until you realize most Hollywood movies cost 10 times that amount. The filmmakers had only 26 days to shoot the entire movie in the Bronx, Queens, and Harlem. They weren't working in fancy studios with perfect lighting and catered meals. They were filming in real clubs, real recording studios, and real streets where hip-hop was actually happening. Michael Schultz signed on to direct the film. He'd already made movies about black culture like Coolie High and Car Wash, so he understood what this project needed to be. He didn't want to make a slick, polished musical. He wanted to create what he called a visual mixtape that would capture hip-hop culture exactly as it was living and breathing in real time. The casting process was unlike anything Hollywood had seen before. Instead of hiring actors to pretend to be rappers, they hired actual rappers to play themselves. Run DMC showed up as Run DMC. The Fat Boys were the Fat Boys. Curtis Blow played Curtis Blow. This wasn't acting in the traditional sense. These were real artists bringing their authentic personalities to the screen. But Russell Simmons himself couldn't play Russell Simmons. When it came time to film, he realized he just wasn't comfortable being an actor. So they created a fictional character named Russell Walker and cast Blair Underwood to play him. This turned out to be a brilliant decision because it allowed the story to explore emotions and failures. The film also needed a love interest might not have been willing to show on camera. Something the studio insisted on to broaden the movie's appeal. They brought in Sheila E., who was already a huge star thanks to her work with Prince. She could sing, she could act, and she brought a level of musical sophistication that complemented the raw energy of the hip-hop artists. Then something magical happened during filming. A 16-year-old kid named LL Cool J wasn't originally supposed to be in the movie at all. But he showed up on set one day, walked right up to the director, and started freestyling his song, I Can't Live Without My Radio. The performance was so electric, so authentic, that they decided to include it in the film on the spot. That unscripted moment launched LL Cool J's career and became one of the most iconic scenes in hip-hop movie history. But filming wasn't easy. They were shooting in real locations without proper permits half the time. The famous Disco Fever Club, where they filmed several scenes, was actually shut down by authorities during production for operating without the right licenses. The whole experience felt like they were documenting an underground culture that was constantly fighting just to exist. All of this chaos and authenticity was leading up to one particular scene that would cause the biggest controversy of all. It wasn't a rap battle or a street fight. It wasn't anything violent or shocking in the way you might expect. It was actually the complete opposite. It was a quiet, intimate moment between Russell Walker and Sheila E.'s character. A simple conversation that led to a gentle kiss. A scene showing two young black people connecting emotionally and romantically. You might be wondering why such a simple scene could cause problems. But you have to understand the context of 1985. Hip-hop was already being attacked by conservative groups who claimed it promoted violence and mora. El Decay. Many white Americans were scared of rap music and the young black men who performed it. The media often portrayed hip-hop artists as angry, dangerous, and one-dimensional. So when studio executives saw this tender scene between two black characters, they panicked. They worried that showing black youth as complex, emotional, and romantic human beings might somehow make the movie too controversial. They were afraid conservative audiences would be upset. They were terrified the film might get slapped with an R rating, which would limit who could see it and hurt their profits. Internal memos started flying around Warner Brothers headquarters. Executives suggested cutting the scene entirely. Others wanted to reshoot it with different lighting or edit it down to just a few seconds. Some even proposed removing all the dialogue to make it less intimate. The pressure was intense, and it came from the very top of the studio system. But director Michael Schultz and the producers refused to budge. They argued that this scene was essential to the film's message. It wasn't about selling sex or creating controversy. It was about showing the world that young black people were complete human beings with the same hopes, dreams, fears, and desires as everyone else. Taking out this scene would reduce their characters to cardboard cutouts and stereotypes. The fight went on for weeks. Kept saying no. Studio executives kept pushing for changes. The tension got so bad that some people thought the movie might never make it to theaters at all. This wasn't just a creative disagreement. It was a battle over who gets to tell black stories and how those stories should be told. Finally, they decided to test the scene with real audiences. They showed the movie to a group of people in Harlem, the heart of hip-hop culture. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Audience members didn't find the scene controversial or inappropriate. They found it refreshing and honest. They appreciated seeing black characters portrayed as fully human, rather than as tough stereotypes. That test screening changed everything. The studio agreed to keep the scene, though they did make some small edits to reduce background noise and tighten the pacing slightly. But the heart of the moment, the emotional connection between the characters, stayed intact. It was a victory for authentic storytelling over corporate fear. When Krush Groove finally opened in theaters on October 25, 1985, it played in over 500 cinemas across the country. The opening weekend brought in nearly $3 million, which was considered a huge success for a low-budget film about underground music culture. Critics had mixed reactions, with some praising the film's energy and authenticity, while others found the acting amateurish and the plot too simple. But audiences, especially young people, absolutely loved it. They didn't care if the acting wasn't perfect or if the story was straightforward. They were seeing their music, their culture, and their lives reflected on the big screen for the first time. Hip-hop wasn't just background music in this movie, it was the main character. The soundtrack became even more successful than the film itself, reaching number 14 on the R&B charts and breaking into the pop charts as well. Songs like LL Cool J's Brew, Eek Through Performance, and Sheila E.'s A Love Bizarre became radio hits. The album proved that hip-hop could sell records to mainstream audiences, not just to kids in the inner city. More importantly, Krush Groove opened doors for hip-hop in Hollywood. Before this movie, rap artists were considered unmarketable to general audiences. After its success, everyone wanted to work with hip-hop stars. LL Cool J went on to become a major movie and TV star. Run DMC became global superstars. The Fat Boys landed their own comedy films. Hip-hop had officially arrived in entertainment. The controversial scene that almost got the movie banned became one of its most praised elements over time. Critics and scholars now point to that moment as revolutionary because it refused to limit black characters to narrow stereotypes. It insisted that young black people deserved to be seen as complex, emotional, and worthy of love and tenderness. Looking back now, it's hard to believe that such a gentle, romantic scene could cause such a massive controversy. But that's exactly why it was so important. In 1985, simply showing young black people as fully tells us everything we need to know about how limited mainstream representations of black life were at the time. The success of Krush Groove paved the way for other hip-hop films like Beat Street and Breakin'. It proved that music movies could be more than just concert footage. They could tell real stories about real communities and find audiences hungry for authentic representation. The film industry started to understand that hip-hop culture had stories worth telling and audiences willing to pay to see them. But perhaps the most lasting impact of Krush Groove was how it changed the way hip-hop artists saw themselves. Before this movie, many rappers thought of themselves as just musicians. After seeing themselves on the big screen, they realized they could be actors, producers, entrepreneurs, and storytellers. They could control their own narratives instead of letting others define them. LL Cool J often talks about how that unscripted audition scene in Krush Groove taught him that performance was about more than just music. It was about connecting with audiences on an emotional level. That lesson served him well throughout his career in movies and television. Blair Underwood credits the film with proving he could handle complex dramatic roles, leading to his success in shows like L.A. Law and Quantico. Even Sheila E., who was already established as a musician, found new opportunities opening up after the film. Her performance showed that women in hip-hop culture could be strong, talented, and emotionally complex. She helped pave the way for future female artists to demand better representation in film and television. The movie also had a lasting impact on how hip-hop culture was documented and preserved. Before Krush Groove, most representations of rap music were either sensationalized news reports or dismissive cultural criticism. This film showed that hip-hop deserved serious artistic treatment. It captured the creativity, ambition, and community that made the culture so powerful. Today, Krush Groove is studied in film schools and music history courses. Professors use it to teach students about entrepreneurship, cultural representation, and the power of authentic storytelling. That controversial bedroom scene is now viewed as a pivotal moment in cinema history, a quiet act of resistance against limiting stereotypes. The film has found new audiences through streaming platforms and DVD releases. Young people discovering it for the first time are often surprised by how raw and honest it feels compared to the polished music videos and movies of today. There's something refreshing about seeing artists just being themselves on camera without layers of production and marketing getting in the way. Hip-hop has come a long way since 1985. It's now the most popular form of music in America and a global cultural phenomenon worth billions of dollars. Artists like Jay-Z, Drake, and Kendrick Lamar are household names who influence fashion, politics, and social movements. The genre that was once dismissed as street noise is now taught in universities and celebrated at award shows. But it's important to remember where it all started. Krush Groove wasn't just entertainment. It said that hip-hop culture mattered, that the stories of young black Americans deserved to be told with dignity and complexity, and that authentic representation was more powerful than slick marketing. The scene that almost got the movie banned wasn't dangerous because it was controversial. It was dangerous because it was honest. It showed that the same young people who were being demonized in the media were capable of tenderness, vulnerability, and love. It humanized a community that many Americans preferred to keep at a distance. That's why this story matters today. We're still fighting battles over representation and authenticity in media. We're still having conversations about who gets to tell which stories and how those stories should be told. We're still seeing communities marginalized and stereotyped by mainstream entertainment. Krush Groove reminds us that sometimes the most radical thing you can do is simply tell the truth. Sometimes revolution looks like a quiet kiss between two young people who refuse to be reduced to caricatures. Sometimes changing the world means insisting that everyone deserves to be seen as fully human. The legacy of this film lives on in every hip-hop artist who demands creative control over their image. It lives on in every movie that chooses authenticity over marketability. It lives on in every young person who sees themselves represented on screen with dignity and complexity. So the next time you see a hip-hop star in a movie or on television, remember the battle that was fought in 1985 to make that representation possible. Remember the scene that almost got banned, but instead became a symbol of artistic courage and cultural progress. And remember that sometimes the most important victories happen quietly, in intimate moments that nobody expects to matter. The bedroom scene in Krush Groove lasted only a few minutes. It was on screen, but its impact has lasted for decades. It proved that love, in all its forms, is always worth fighting for. If this story opened your eyes to a piece of music and movie history you never knew about, make sure to hit that like button to help more people discover it. Share this video with anyone who loves hip-hop culture or believes in the power of authentic storytelling. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from the worlds of music, movies, and culture. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll uncover another fascinating story that shaped the entertainment we love today.